Hi there, it is Ben and Skip. We are talking today about making remote work work for you. We're going to talk about a lot of super useful strategies for you and your team. We're really thrilled to be here. Before we get started on the content, we wanted to spend a moment to introduce ourselves to you. You might know Skip, but not me. You might know me, but not Skip. And heck, you might not even know either of us. So regardless of what that case is, let's give you the Reader's Digest version about us and then also about what we're going to talk about here today. So I am Ben Donahauer. I run a inbound marketing agency. A big part of what we do is video. We help teams, organizations use video to improve their sales, to improve their marketing, to improve their corporate communications just the same. So we're going to be talking a lot about the nuts and bolts of making video work for you and for your remote team as you level up through that process. Skip, how about yourself?
Well, Ben, thank you for the invite to participate in this program. I work with small business owners and their teams of employees to create what I call championship work environments that have employees thinking, acting, feeling, and making decisions as if they were the business owner, and really creating a high-performance work environment with everybody, as I say, rowing in the same direction. So, and one of the things that prompted me to create this content, my segment of the content, of this presentation is the fact that I'm just seeing so much of a accelerated move towards the remote workplace. And when I'm looking at how I can be even more relevant to clients and small businesses in this crazy environment we've been experiencing for the last 90 days or so, I just have seen so many people making this shift really in a moment's notice. And it wasn't in mid-February or even after, for a few weeks, nobody was expecting to do this, to make remote work a major part of how they did their business. And lo and behold, March 15th came and everybody's been forced to do it to one level or another. And so I just thought this would be a really good topic for people to wrap their heads around how to do this and do it effectively.
Yeah. Skip, we're hearing from some participants that they are not hearing your audio. I'm hearing your audio just fine. If anyone else can chime in here with a message to me, whether you're having some audio issues with Skip, would be happy to get some of that feedback.
And that's why I have the headset on, so I thought that would solve that problem. But I'm coming through okay to you. Hopefully others are getting it, and it's on the receiver's end. But
yes, fantastic. So I know you're going to start off with a presentation here, and Skip's going to give this first segment of our masterclass on making remote work work. Going to talk about those big picture communication pieces and the different levels of making remote work. Others can hear you just fine. So that first individual, please check some of your audio preferences. I'm happy to work with you while Skip is going through his presentation here privately if you're still having some issues. But thanks for alerting us to that just the same. And Skip, take it away here. I know we're going to have a little bit of back and forth here, but I'll see if I can get this one attendee situated with the audio.
Okay, great. So let's see how we advance the slides here. There we go. That's pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to zip through this because you already talked about the background and what we're going to be talking about. So let's look at some statistics. Did some research and found that if you look at remote workplaces internationally, globally, if you look at Europe, 23% of people in Denmark work remotely. Now that is defined as working from home or remotely at least several times per month. So this does not mean it's every day. But 23% of Danes work from home several times per month. In the Netherlands, it's 21%. In Sweden, it's 18%. In the United States, is just 7%. That's based on 2019 statistics. That probably has gone through the roof in the last couple of weeks and months. It'll be interesting to see what those statistics are come later this year if they update them and see really what the shift has been. But what I'm saying is it's a significant transformation. This is the types of people in the United States that have been working remotely to this point, mostly management, higher salaried employees. Obviously, the lower end of the wage scale are the types of jobs where people have to be on site, working with their hands. The healthcare workers, the service people. Not surprising that the lower wages have to be on site and are not allowed to work remotely. So, just some background statistics there. Just want to get people starting to think about what are the advantages of working remotely for a company and the organization or for the individual team members. I think it's really important to look at what the advantages are so that we can leverage those. And my wife works for county government, and until March 15th, never in a million years would they ever be allowed to work remotely consistently. Now, she and her entire department and whole division of county government just collaborated to create a future remote work environment where everybody was given the choice of working from home either 1 or 5 days a week. You pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, whatever you want to do, and put your schedule together. And that is just transformational for government, employees. And so it's not the only place it's happening, but just doing this for 8 to 12 weeks, they see that it's doable, right? And how can we add value? But what I found about this, researching it internationally, and what other cultures are finding, is there are huge advantages. And in 2014, there was some specific official research done through Stanford University, a Chinese travel agency with a call center with 16,000 employees. They created a 9-month research project where they asked people to voluntarily work remotely. And they took those volunteers and then they split them into 2 groups. A group that was allowed to work remotely, and then a control group that worked back at the office on site, as they always had. And they found that home working improved productivity by 13%, 9% more minutes per shift employees were doing, on the job, and 4% more calls were taken per minute. Employee attrition fell by 50% against the control group, and that's huge because, as you probably know, Ben, call centers are highly have high attrition, high turnover in call centers. It's not the greatest job in the world, low pay, but that flexibility gave people the comfort in their job. The other important thing is they saw no loss of quality in their customer service. And they felt that really overall productivity improved 20, 30% and saved $2,000 per employee who was working from home. But it's not for everybody. And so what they found is after they had this great success, they opened it up to the entire company. And 50% of the people who were in the work from home group in the research decided they wanted to go back and work on site because it wasn't for them. So what you're going to find is it's not for everybody. And that's why, my wife's job, I think it's really cool that they're giving people the choice. How many days do you want to work from home? And some are selecting none. Some are selecting 3 or 4. And I don't think anybody's selected 5 yet. But it's going to evolve and grow. In 2012, the U.S. Patent and Trade Office actually did some of this and did some research, and they found a 4.4% productivity increase with no significant increase in rework or quality deterioration. So I think the jury may be still out on productivity. I think there's a strong showing that it can improve productivity if people have the flexibility of working remotely. Gallup's research came out in January of 2020, just 5 months ago on this. And this is some quotes from their report. Remote work not only improves outcomes in employee branding, but it is a policy that the most talented employees desire. And I would add to that, not just the most talented employees, but I think the younger generation is going to really want this. And so you've got to start stepping up and bringing your work environment into the 21st century. Much of the research indicates that remote workers are more productive between higher engagement scores, increased productivity offsite. Workers offer the greatest gains in business outcomes. And in an organization with 500 people working 3 times per week, you could see significant financial improvements in productivity. So I think, there's a great case to be made for this. But it's not perfect, right? So think about what the challenges are for an organization and individuals. I know we're here, especially, the whole COVID thing is a little unique in the fact that everything is shut down. So the kids are also at home, and the parents have to do homeschooling and do their job. So there's some challenges there. But even if the kids weren't home, if they were at school or they're at day camp during the summertime, you still have some personal challenges in being able to focus, not being pulled away by personal stuff at home. It's different for everybody. And there are challenges just from, again, keeping people engaged, and we'll talk about that as we move forward. So I think one of the leading company leaders in remote workplaces is this guy named Matt Mullenweg. He's sort of in your world, Ben, and I think one of the reasons why you suggested we do this program is your company also, you're 100% distributed workforce, right? Just like Matt Mullenweg, who's founded WordPress, and the parent company is Automattic. 1,175 employees in 75 different countries. They've all worked what he calls distributed workforce, not remote. He likes that language better. I think it makes more sense. Remote sounds like you're in the middle of a jungle somewhere or out in the outback in Australia, in a remote place to work, but you're just distributed. You're working in an office that's distributed across the globe. Ben, what's your experience with your remote team? I know you don't have 1,175 employees in 75 countries, but you have a few you have to deal with.
Certainly, and that certainly was an impetus for this conversation, and what I thought would bring some value here to the overall marketplace by talking about this. It's kind of funny because my team and we joke that not much has changed, and then my wife and I joke that not much has changed either. We get everything delivered through Amazon, and we work out of the house, and so this is our life, is being a distributed team. And I think what you had mentioned earlier about younger generations, especially looking for that sort of distributed workplace, being able to work from home as a core way to retain talent, to attract young talent, is being really important. It's something that allowed me, from a talent recruitment perspective, not just to think about the people in my community and in my area. I'm plugged into our technology community, our marketing community in central Pennsylvania. But when it comes to hiring people, I can hire people globally. And when I'm looking at talent across the planet and able to identify the best of the best, geez, I might find that person in Texas, I might find that person in Ireland, and I might find that person in Serbia. And so I am able to open up to a much broader pool of talent and pull those folks in. But to your point, it's really critical. And one of the reasons why I thought it was useful to have this conversation is having that company culture and identifying individuals who are going to fit into it really well is absolutely critical. I have made a hiring mistake or two by bringing on someone that this wasn't a good fit for them. And they were a talented person. They showed success within prior employers. And I'm sure that they're doing excellent in their current employer environment, but this remote work thing just wasn't a good fit for them. So being able, now that we're all sort of thrust into it, like it or lump it, there is a big sea change happening here. And if we're going to make the most productive and efficient work environment here, we need to have these conversations.
Yeah. So we're going to go and look at Matt Mullenweg's 5 remote levels. And I think it really tells a story as to where we've been at and where we're going. So the pre-COVID-19 level 1 is unprepared, right? There were no deliberate efforts to create a remote or support remote work. It occurs infrequently and only for a short time period on emergency issues. So let's say, there's a mom there who has a 7-year-old kid who gets up being sent home from school. The child is sick, and the next day they can't go back to school because they're still sick. They call in, and now they may work remotely, but for the most part, they're going to have to take a sick day or a day or a personal day or something, right? And they may jump on a call if they had to, if it was really important. But everything is really required to be in the office, and you make some accommodations. But typically, in those situations, whoever is working remotely is not really plugged in. they're seeing it as a day off. And they'll show up if they have to, but for the most part, they see it as a day off. They have to take personal time or whatever, as I said. And so it's really just a shadow, as I say, of their office productivity. And neither side really expects much work to get done from the individual. And that's where most of us were, level one, pre-COVID-19, and certainly my wife's office was. Now, level two, you start to think about it. Team members may have access to some video conferencing, like a Zoom or something. You might use email remotely. You may have some instant messaging software like Slack or Microsoft Teams to work interactively. You try to recreate the actual office, regular office, but do it remotely. There's still this feeling that I don't know, Ben, what you're doing. You're not at your desk. I can't walk by and see you there every day, so I have no idea what you're doing. For all I know, you're renovating your bathroom on company time, or you're binge watching Netflix or something. I can't see you, so who knows? And for that reason, I don't trust what you're doing, so I need immediate responsiveness, right? I expect you to get back to me right away. Otherwise, I think you're goofing off, you're loafing. And so we really need to figure out what that looks like and where we want it to go. But for the most part, we're not there yet. There's constant interruptions. I've known some companies that even put tracking software on employees, devices to see how much time they're spending on their quote, computer desktop or whatever. And so it's really a big brother situation. I just don't trust that you're doing what I'm paying you for when you're not on site. Now, nobody really looks to evaluate whether you're being productive when you're on site. If you're in your seat at your desk in your office, you must be doing something. But we all know that's a fallacy. So I think once we come to grips with that and realize, it really shouldn't matter. And so we have to start being comfortable and start letting go and put some things in place. So I'm going to talk about towards the end of my part of the presentation here about how to make that more effective. But now we're getting to the level three, and this is where we're really diving in and we're adapting to the remote working world. The equipment and resources are more updated. We start working with document sharing like a Google Docs, where you can actually do things in real time, update documents in real time. And you don't have to go back and forth with track changes, which I absolutely hate. And then you start scheduling meetings that are much more appropriate for the situation. The default, and this is what Matt suggests, is for 15 minutes, because anything more than that, it's going to expand to fill the time. So why not, let's just, if we know we got 15 minutes, everybody's going to be on topic. We have an agenda and outcomes agreed to ahead of time. We keep the meetings small, typically no more than 3 people, just so we can not have that external stuff. Most times for decisions and getting things done, we don't need 8 or 10 people in the meeting. How many meetings have you attended where you didn't even know why you're there, right? And it wasn't effective, but somebody thought you should be there because, again, you're in the office, you're on company time, I'm paying you, just be there. But it's a waste of everybody's time. So the meetings are small and they're short. And we all have specific accountabilities and commitment dates for getting stuff done based on what comes out of the meeting. And one of the best things I love about Matt's suggestion here is never to use a meeting just to communicate information. There's other tools and resources for that. Meetings should be specifically to get stuff done, make decisions, and move things forward. And we have to begin placing a higher level of expectation around how we communicate written, in the written word. We have to be succinct, we have to be specific and timely. And I really liked reading what I heard from Matt Mullenweg, in that he really puts a high level of expectation on people's writing skills so that they are succinct and they get the message out that way. Because we're not going to be talking a whole lot in a remote work environment. You're going to have those instant messages and emails and stuff. Where are you at, Ben? Are you at level 3 or level 4? What would you say for your guys?
I think it depends upon the day. A number of these things are part of our culture, and they are game changers. First off, that changing, one of the things that sort of precipitated my journey into entrepreneurship was this idea of boy, why am I in this meeting? Why am I spending half of my day doing something that isn't necessarily particularly productive when I want to be out there like knocking things off my to-do list? And so a couple really simple things that you see in these suggestions about meetings are critical. One is I do use 15 minutes as a default meeting time. And what I think might be powerful about that, and a good way to start, especially if you're concerned that it's going to go over, is put a buffer between your next meeting of 15 minutes. So, baby steps here. You can set a meeting for 15 minutes, and if it takes 20, it takes 20. You're learning. This is new to you. So
Right.
It gives you an opportunity to have a little bit of flexibility there. And if it went 20 minutes, goodness gracious, that's probably 40 minutes shorter than it would have been otherwise.
Exactly.
So starting at 15 minutes, and now you feel bad because you've gone 5 minutes over your scheduled time. Well, that's still an outrageous improvement in productivity for you and your team, and gives you a really good place to start. So the other thing that I don't think most organizations really think about, but their team meetings, whether it's their division, whether it's an all employee staff meeting, is the most expensive thing you do as an organization. Most of the time, if you're a group of knowledge workers, that is the most expensive thing you do. You get 20 people in a room, you get 30 people in a room, and you're paying all their salaries for that hour. That's an outrageously expensive proposition for your company.
Yeah.
So you should take that incredibly seriously when you do it, because it's a huge driver of your overhead.
Yeah, I actually created a thing called the communication cost calculator that if you want to, you can go to my website and actually play with that. The number of people in the meeting, how long are the meetings each week, what's their average salary and benefits, and you can see the real dollars and cents cost to it. So really where we're going is the level 4.
That, did you?
But that,
you didn't pay me to say that, did you?
No, not at all. I think
right into that offer. I think I'll have to play with that too, because it seems like a useful tool.
Yeah. So really where we want to go is to level 4, total asynchronous communication culture. And that's where team members are evaluated on output and production, not where, how, or when it's produced. If your meeting required deadlines and commitments, that's really all that matters. And we're not really worried about when you're working or how you're working, as long as it's the right way and we agree on things. Employees have high quality, high tech home office setups. Employee retention is really high because people have time and they're flexible and they can do things on their own terms, their own time, and they take time for themselves. Real-time meetings are respected and taken seriously, always have agendas with pre-work and post-work commitments. This is, and what we mean by being respected, people don't show up 5 or 10 minutes late. You make the commitment and you block it out and you're there. And I think when you get to this stage, things really start flowing because everybody can trust each other and know that we're going to respect each other's time and get things done. And as you mentioned a little while ago, you're able to tap into a talent pool that's global. And you can work 24/7. I don't mean an individual works 24/7, but your projects are working 24/7. I've done some project work with Fiverr and with Upwork for people who have businesses in India or the Philippines or Singapore, and they're half a day ahead of us. So it's really great when they work when we're sleeping, we work when they're sleeping, and so you can get stuff done, send it off, they work on it. I wake up the next morning and it's moved forward, right? And you're just working on projects 24/7, and I think it really gets things flowing effectively. And so there's a lot of benefits to this, and we just have to let go of that need to have instantaneous response and trust the reasonable response time that we can and come to agreement on that with our team and see what the expectations are, but really let go of some of the old expectations that we've had. Now, the 5th level is really what Matt calls nirvana. It is totally aspirational. It's never going to get there. It's always going to be a work in progress. But as you said, we're always refining it. We're always learning things. So like you said, if you schedule these 15-minute meetings and they go to 20 or 25, who cares right now? We're just evolving. We're refining. Let's see how we can make them even better. But you're still ahead of the game. But this is what he calls effortless effectiveness. Everyone takes time for personal and physical and mental wellness. This has been really great for me. My wife and I walk every day for 60 to 90 minutes. I walked a mile to the post office and back yesterday at midday. Took an hour and a half to do that, and came back and was fully refreshed for an afternoon. So when we're working remotely, we have more flexibility. We can do these things and just give each other the permission to do this more than anything. And I think that's the biggest roadblock to this, because right now it feels uncomfortable. It's not what we're used to. And we just have to give ourselves permission and give our people permission to interact and engage this way. So those are the 5 levels. And just think about where you're at right now. May even want to just write down on a piece of paper or something. What level are you at now, and what would you like to get to over the next 6 or 7 months between the end of the year? Could you move up a notch and really make this a major part? I can't tell you how surprised I am at how easily my wife's organization, our county government, has really adopted to this and embraced it, because we never thought it would happen. They've rewritten all the rules. They've had to negotiate with the unions to rework how you define work and stuff. It's been really impressive what they've done the last 8 weeks to make it possible for people. It's sort of like letting the genie out of the bottle. Once it's out, once people get a taste of this, it's going to be hard to reel it back in. So you just have to go with the flow.
Skip, but I think a key piece here is necessity is the mother of all invention. And so many companies who thought there's no way that my company can do this, we would just crumble and fall. And with the pandemic, you know what, they had that choice. They could fall apart as an organization, or they could try to make it work. You know what, given those 2 options, that they try to make it work. But what has happened is we see a lot of organizations who, and you alluded to this earlier, who are in level 2, and they realize that next week, or even July 1st, or whenever the next business day is, that we're on a different level of stay-at-home order or whatnot, that they're still not going to all go back to the office 5 days a week. They might be a week on, a week off. They might be on a couple days, just like you had said that your wife's employer is doing. So knowing that the genie's been let out of the bottle, or knowing that there's just going to be a different way that companies are going to operate in the medium term, at least to the end of the year, you need to make a conscious decision as an organization. Are you going to just limp along in level 2 and stick with your hack together tools and your hack together strategy? Or are you really going to try to make it work for you and level up as an enterprise?
Yeah. And start looking at what are the tools we need to create and offer. My wife is sort of kicking herself because she's like number 2 in this department. A year and a half ago, they bought desktop computers for everybody. And now they're saying, geez, we wish we bought everybody laptops, because now everybody needs a laptop, and they don't have a budget, and they can't go out and buy 15 new laptops after they just bought a year and a half ago desktop computers for everybody. So it's like, we have to start seeing where we can update our equipment to make it easier for people. So what I've created is this thing called ROI, how to get an ROI by applying ROI for your remote workforce. So we want to get a return on our investment. And here's a little acronym. So the first R here is responsiveness, respect, and trust. Responsiveness, as you know, is vital. And when we do it right, we create an understanding about what responsiveness means and what it looks like on our team. And we hold each other and ourselves accountable to it. It builds high levels of respect and trust that you're a valuable team member. So we really need to respect our employees as professionals, believe that they want to do a good job. 99% do. And the flip side, as an employee, we have to respect our employer and do the right thing, do what's expected of us. And when we treat each other as adults, I really believe people respond as adults. We agree on appropriate levels of responsiveness and timeliness required to support our teammates, and really agree that immediate is not necessarily a reasonable standard, because there's no way to really tell when that's what immediate is to me or to you. So we just have to, again, discuss, negotiate, and talk about what that looks like. And respect responsiveness and timeliness agreements to build high levels of trust and respect across the team. Ben, what do you do for responsiveness, and what are your expectations, since you do have that distributed workforce along these lines?
Mm-hmm. Some of the examples that you've given were some experiences you had with some folks that are 12 hours time difference away from you. Most of my team, I had mentioned Serbia earlier, most of my team is based out of Serbia, and they are, to me, a perfect difference in time away. They are 6 hours ahead of us typically, though there's a darn week where we spring ahead and we fall back, and Europe hasn't done that yet. I wish we could figure that out as a global community, right. But that's just a couple weeks out of the year. But for the most part, they're 6 hours ahead, and that allows us as team members to do something that Matt Mullenweg mentions as well, which is have this opportunity for deep, uninterrupted work, where we're really able to dive deep into what we do as individuals. And at the same time, we have hours where, typically they're daytime hours, they're times that, we'd both be working. But that said, not only were we a completely remote team, and we should differentiate between this when Automattic talks about their work environment, they are both a remote team and a flex team. So not only are they distributed in that they don't necessarily have an office to go to, but they're not expected to be working on particular hours. Now, you had mentioned earlier, Skip, that there's people in the customer service business. And you know what? No Bounds Digital, we're in the customer service business. Yeah. Can I write a blog post or create a marketing automation workflow or set up HubSpot better than the next guy? Sometimes the answer to that question is yes. But, sometimes the answer to that question is, like, I could set up HubSpot technically as efficiently as someone else. And then where the real differentiator is about communication, is about some responsiveness and such. So as you say, it's not about necessarily, geez, we all want to have 96 hours to be able to respond to any email. It's about, identifying what's critical for your business and what's important, agreed upon responsiveness, and when that really matters or not. Because you know what, for me as a manager, if I expect immediate response from everyone in my team, that is a failure of me as a manager, not of my team. Right. And geez, that's something that's like, hey, maybe we all need to look ourselves in the mirror and think, goodness gracious, if I need an immediate response, think about why. The reason why 9 times out of 10 is because we didn't prepare, or we didn't actually get the information we need when we should have gotten it, or right. A whole host of those other sorts of reasons. Right. So it's critical to me that I think we look at our organizations, we realize where our value proposition is in the marketplace, and look, if it's responsiveness, fantastic. Like, make that a part of your cultural ethos, but make it clear about when it's important to be responsive and when it's important to be thoughtful about giving people that sort of flexibility here. Because when you had said earlier, the genie's out of the bag, Skip, that really resonated with me, because people's work-life balance is a bit of a fallacy as well. But people do want an opportunity to work when they're most productive, right? Or take a break when they really need a break. I can hustle pretty darn hard for an extended period of time, but you know what? There comes a point in the day where I just want to go downstairs, let the dog out, maybe take a trip around the block, see how my kids are doing, chat with my wife for 10 minutes, something like that, so that I can come back up and hustle my face off
Sure.
as efficiently as it was before. So, that there is a difference between a remote workforce and a flex workforce. I think a lot of organizations aren't necessarily there with flex, but the coronavirus has done that same
Yep.
to remote as they have for flex, because guess what? How many of us here have been on a Zoom call where their toddler comes in yelling and screaming, or something like that,
Yeah.
I think it's been a really positive thing for the marketplace that we've been able to extend each other some grace in those instances.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic about this, and I think it's one of the best things, at least for me, around workplaces that is really positive that's coming out of this COVID crisis. Is it's accelerated the need to move in this direction, because I think it's the 21st century and we should be moving in that direction. And the way we make this work is really through the O, which is objectives, outcomes, and output. Instead of worrying about FaceTime or sitting at your desktop time, time in the saddle, time at your desk, and moving tasks along. This is about defining really clear objectives for people. What outcomes have to be created and the output people need to produce. And if you're focusing on that, stuff is measurable. And Ben, it either got done or it didn't get done. It didn't either met the deadline or it didn't meet the deadline. And you really can't argue about that. Now, you can talk about whether there were obstacles in the way, which I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But if there is, then let's talk about the obstacles, and let's break through those obstacles and figure out how we can achieve, the outcome that we need next time, or to accelerate that. But if we're not focusing on objectives, outcomes, and output, we're just talking about, more of the challenging emotional stuff that gets in our way. Were they on the call, on time, or did they show up, or did they leave early, and things like that. So we really just have to focus on output and objectives, and make a shift. There's a company, when you talk about flex time, there's another organization who does this extremely well. It's called Rowe, ROWE, and it's two women who used to work for Best Buy in their HR department, and they create this thing called Rowe, which is a results-only work environment. And they do consulting and implementation on creating a row. I don't care where you are, when you work, as long as you get your work done and you fulfill your commitments and what your teammates need. And that means you can work on a beach in Tahiti at 3 a.m. if you so desire, as long as you get your stuff done and you fulfill your teammates. And that's really, really what we should be focusing on. Worry about output and outcomes and objectives. The I is about integrate, because we're working in a distributed environment where we're all over the place, and we could be across the globe as Matt Mullenweg is, and as Ben, your team is, or we could be just in the same town, but we're working in a distributed situation, as my wife probably will be. We still need to create that team concept and build those relationships. And it's a little more challenging because we're not face to face. So there's 3 things we have to integrate. One is the functional. How do we get things done operationally? How do we build relationships that are based on mutual trust and respect? And how do we create that culture of a sense of team and camaraderie? We can't lose sight of that, because when we're working by ourselves, Ben, you and I are working by ourselves in our little office. How do we know we're part of anything beyond our 4 walls here? We can feel pretty isolated, and so we need to build that camaraderie. So again, it goes back to systems. Identify systems, platforms that you can use to engage your workers, right? Slack is a great team development thing where you can do real-time chatting and document sharing and all. Microsoft Teams, Google Docs, there's all sorts of those things that will allow people to work in an integrated fashion. What are the guidelines, again, for expectations around communication? Coverage, overlapping hours if you need that, and responsiveness, which we've mentioned. But where do you schedule time for just the fun stuff? Water cooler conversations, one-on-one meetups via Zoom or Skype where you just talk about non-work stuff. Have a happy hour. Bring your favorite beverage to the Zoom call. And I know a lot of organizations have gotten very creative with that in recent weeks. And then if you have the opportunity, where can you bring people together for real? I know Matt Mullenweg, on a quarterly basis or semi-annual basis, actually flies people into various sites and actually does team events with people together to build that sense of team and camaraderie. You have to be much more intentional about it in this type of environment, because if you're not intentional about it and you don't schedule it, it's really easy to lose track of it, and people are going to feel isolated and you're going to lose them. So there needs to be some type of culture committee that really works on integrating these things and saying, what can we do? Who's the creative person? What can we do? What's our theme for the week? And things like that, and get people involved in creating fun things to integrate the team. Otherwise, we're going to lose track of it pretty easily. Any thoughts here on Ben?
Absolutely. So, this probably wasn't necessarily clear to anyone coming into this call, but Skip, how you and I first connected is I'm your customer. I retained Skip as our coach to implement the great game of business at No Bounds Digital, and this was one of our pain points. Look, this stuff isn't easy. I'd love to say that I'm Moses coming down with the tablets and I've got all these answers here. But while I think we've got a number of insights, look, as an organization, No Bounds Digital is still learning about some of these things in many ways, even though we've been remote for 5 years. And we've had a team that has been, working from out of their home for what seems like an incredibly long period of time. And oftentimes people come to me and say, "Hey, Ben, do you have the answer to all my remote team problems?" And I think we've got some insights here, that some of which that we've already gone through, and more to come here in this masterclass. But there's also areas that we struggle with. And as a team, one of the reasons why we came to you, Skip, as a communications professional and as a great game of business coach, is that when it came to those sort of water cooler conversations, we had a really strong team bond. But that was because as an organization, we've been in the trenches together. We've done a good job in terms of team retention. I have team members that have been with us since pretty much the beginning, and others that have been in terms of the length of our organization for the majority of No Bounds Digital's life. So we sort of have this sense that we're in it together. We're in the foxhole, and then we're doing it for the other soldier right next to us here as much as we are for anything else. And that's a key part of our team culture. But at the same time, you don't get those sort of water cooler conversations. You don't necessarily get a chance to go to happy hour, or let's go bowling once a month or something like that an in-person team gets to do. Right. So that was a challenge for us, and is something that we've made a lot of strides in. But this really also goes back to your team culture as well. One of the things that we tried with the great game of business that didn't necessarily motivate us as a team is buying stuff for our team. So we would have a mini game where we would try to meet an objective that would improve our capabilities as a business, and we would hit it. Everyone we would buy the stuff, and no one cared. Like even if we all came up with it as a team, no one really cared, because us as individuals aren't necessarily super excited about that. So then we had to go back to the drawing board and get creative about that process, and what would be a real motivator for us as individuals that are a part of this organization that is No Bounds Digital when we hit those goals, when we beat those mini games. So I would say what we're talking about now are best practices. These are absolutely systems and tools that you should be looking at. These are absolutely things that you might see if a happy hour of sorts works with you and your team. But you know what? Maybe it doesn't. Right. And that's okay. You know what? You're on absolutely new territory for your organization. Try it, see how it goes. And if it falls flat, you know what? Know that you've got another opportunity later to try it again, because you're creating new traditions for your organization. You're creating a new culture as you evolve in the 21st century.
And that's, look, to speak a little bit to that on this slide, the thing that you mentioned, you have to engage everybody in the conversation. What's going to work for us? What do we want it to be like? And if you get everybody's input and start creating it amongst the team and not dictating it, people are going to support what they help create, and they'll be more on board with it. And again, you just have to get creative and find your way, really, and dabble in some things, try some things, and you'll find what works for your people. One of the things I espouse people to do is create a thing called a team agreement, where you identify the 4 or 5, no more than 6 key tenets of how we promise to interact and engage with each other. And then you hold people accountable to that. Again, they've created it. And one of the things that's really important for a lot of the brick and mortar organizations that are transitioning, including some of my manufacturing clients, because there's some people in the manufacturing company, you've got to be on site. You're a machinist. You need to work the machine. You can't work remotely from home. Someday that may be possible. Right now it's not. So there's going to be some people working on site because that's the nature of their job. And administrative and customer service people will be able to work from a remote location. That has the tendency to create an us versus them culture. You've got to be really careful with that and communicate in a way that allows both teams to see and respect each other's roles and how they get the job done. And the worst thing you can do is not talk about it. Let's open up dialogue and have a conversation about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and get it out there and just deal with it. And if people don't like their job because they have to be on site, well, then they're going to have to find a new job or a new role. It is what it is. I'd love to have my key machinist who runs this machine work from home. Ain't possible, So you've got to work on that and see how you can integrate the two teams if they are have different capabilities. So the key to all this is communication. That's my bias. Communication really drives everything. So here's some tips on communication to make this all work. Really need to be specific and succinct. No ASAP, no immediate, no, well, Ben, when you can get to this. I want specific deadlines, specific timelines, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, things like that. Otherwise, I have a email exchange my wife sent me the other day. It was just absolutely hilarious. And she was trying to coach one of her vendors on why she needed more specific timelines on when he needed stuff from her. It's actually pretty comical. So we need to train people to do this. I'll foster what I call two-way PDR conversations. PDR stands for prompt, direct, and respectful. It's what I call it's a championship leadership communication trait. The best coaches in the world communicate with their athletes this way, and it creates a high trust, high respect work environment. Create this team agreement that outlines performance and behavior expectations and creates some accountability for each other to move forward with. And use some communication models and styles. One is Agile. Agile is a project management philosophy and approach, and I'm going to share with you a way to do that. And then the SBAR model is a real good way to do status updates on stuff. So we'll take a quick look at that in a moment. Again, short meetings, huddle meetings for Agile, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the time, the size of your team. Again, if we can keep it to 15, all the better. And the more frequently that you have them. So a lot of Agile huddles are daily, 15 minutes, boom, get in and out. If you have to wait a week, that means it's going to be longer because there's more information to share. Each team member prepares and answers just 3 questions. I'll share what those 3 questions are in just a moment. And a real key to this, because you've seen this in all sorts of meetings where things really get off track, and people have these one-on-one conversations in the meeting that are not appropriate for everybody. So the answers to the questions have to be of value to everyone on the team. If they're one-on-one, take them offline after the huddle. So here's your 3 questions. Very simply, what did you accomplish since the last meeting? What are you working on until the next meeting? And what's getting in your way or keeping you from doing your job effectively? Everybody takes maybe a minute to answer those 3 questions. And this keeps everybody up to date as to what's happening and where some of the roadblocks are, and you can work through them. Typically what's going to happen if people bring up some roadblocks and obstacles in number 3, you're going to take those offline. You're not going to solve them in that meeting. You'll be aware of them, and just the 2 people or 3 people who need to work on that obstacle will get together afterwards and not bog everybody else down. So that's how you do an agile huddle. There's all sorts of resources online that you can get some more information on how to do those. And then the SBAR model came from the nuclear submarine industry and has now moved over into the healthcare industry. And this is how many doctors and nurses share information between patients. If you're handing off a patient to a doctor from a nurse, they use this, and I teach all my clients to use this. 4 aspects of the communication, very succinct: situation, background, assessment, recommendation, all in one communication, and it should be 1 minute, 15 seconds in each segment. And you get the whole status update in 60 seconds. Now, this takes practice. A lot of people like to tell the whole backstory and all sorts of rationalizations and explanations as to what's going on. We don't need that. What people will do is they will ask you for more information if they need it. Don't overwhelm them with information that's unnecessary. Practice getting each of these 4 into 15 seconds and do a status update in 1 minute for people. And this will get your communication succinct and moving forward and easy to make progress and not bog things down. So here's a disclaimer just for us. Neither Ben nor I are attorneys or HR consultants officially. There's all sorts of issues regarding overtime and tracking people's hours, exempt, non-exempt employees, all sorts of legal issues that you have to deal with. Get advice from your attorney and your HR professionals on what the real legal ramifications are of doing remote work in your state, because each state has their own laws that are changing by the hour, the way things are these days. So that is my disclaimer there. Just let's think about what you may have learned so far in this presentation. I'll do a little debrief there. And Ben has some resources that will help folks make remote work even better. So we'll talk about that in just a second. I put a little package together for people. If you'd like to get some of these resources, the slides for this presentation, a list of highly respected remote workforce cloud-based software programs, 47 tips for working from home from groove.com, another distributed work environment. And locally, I have a HR consultancy, Ethan Allen Workforce Solutions, for New York State, came up with some HR guidelines and facts that are pretty generic that will help you craft a remote workforce, remote working policy if you want that for your company. There's some really good questions to ponder in the Ethan Allen resource there. So if you want to download that, you can go to improveemployeeperformance.com and grab that package. And that's my little free giveaway. And thank you for showing up here today. So Ben, I know you have some resources that you want to share and show people that I think will help them with their communication in their distributed work environments moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, Skip. Know also for attendees that I think Skip and I are over a little bit of that URL. So I did put the Improve Employee Performance URL in the chat. You can grab that website there to take advantage of Skip's offer. Looks like some useful resources to take this to the next level, because really what we're here about, we've told you to make 15-minute meetings, and here we are, and we've taken 90 minutes of your day. So we want to bring a lot of value here, give you a lot of resources, and those are a lot for you to digest of what Skip's presentation's already talked about. There's some more that you can dig into at your convenience that he's just offered you now. But at the same time, I think I mentioned earlier, I like to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. How can I knock a bunch of things off my checklist? So I would love to talk about how we can operationalize some of these best practices. Because as organizations, we're probably at level 2 right now. We've been forced into this distributed workplace. This isn't necessarily something that we have chosen for our enterprises, but here we are. So if we're going to make it work, if we're going to embrace it, if we're going to get to level 3 where we're adapting to the medium, or if we're going to even get to level 4 where we're embracing asynchronous communication, we need first to be able to adopt those cultural and communication strategies that Skip talked about in general. But then we also need to take these tools, learn them, get the technical expertise that we need to be able to thrive in a distributed work environment. So I'm going to talk about one of them right now that is, I think, a key game changer in how we can work as a team. Now, let me see if I can grab our, that didn't work out quite right, did it? And I will change our layouts.
Whoa,
there it is. I know, that's a little trippy, isn't it?
That happened to me when I first shared.
There it is. All right, so we're going to get rid of the slides.
For me to unshare my thing?
Yes, if you could.
I don't know. How do I do that? There you go.
Great.
Hopefully that helps.
Yep. And then we've got this guy here. And I will move over. You shouldn't see that never-ending nexus that is our webinar now. Is that the case?
Looks good for me.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks for that feedback there, Skip. So what I want to talk about is one way that you can really operationalize this, because of all the tools that we had mentioned. Look, most of them are things that you probably already have at your disposal in your enterprise. Of course, we've got the good old-fashioned telephone. We have email. You're probably or potentially using some form of Messenger or Slack or alternatives there. You're using Zoom meetings. You might have other webinar software as well. But my guess is at least one of those communication channels makes your heart skip a beat, and you're thinking, geez, if I were in my office, a 2-minute conversation by stepping into the cube of my colleague down the road here is a heck of a lot more efficient than a email conversation that's 10 or 15 replies long. Or, every time I pick up the phone and I talk to my manager or I talk to the subject matter expert that I connect with regularly, I've got to have 5 minutes of small talk with that person. And darn it, I'm under deadline right now. I'd love to avoid that 5 minutes of small talk so I can actually get the work done that I need to get done. So how do we break through some of the challenges that are associated with these communications channels? How do we enhance them? And how do we take the best of what in-person communication provides to us? And the answer is what we're doing right now, which is video. People use video, engage with video at a rate that they don't audio and a rate that they don't text for obvious reasons. So much of those constant tennis matches and email threads are because people are missing the full breadth of the context of the communication that you have. And when you have a scenario where you're able to see someone else's facial expressions and you hear the tone in their voice and you see their body language, and they might be presenting a visual aid like I'm presenting a visual aid right now, you add so much more context to that conversation that you prevent all of those challenges that you see with a zillion text messages or getting slacked constantly about the same thing that you've provided the answer for to your manager a million times over already. Well, you can create a more efficient distributed workplace by taking the best of those in-person conversations and replicating it using video, just like we are right now in this webinar. But you can also use it in a quick, do-it-yourself way that's going to streamline your corporate communications and can help with your sales and marketing teams just the same. So I'm going to walk through practically how we do that as an organization, how you can get started today, and how you can get started for free. There are tools out there that don't cost you a dime, And as I noted, they are DIY friendly, especially as you're taking baby steps to using video in your enterprise. Just a quick little sneak peek. This isn't just for funsies. This is something that I actually want you to do and implement in your organization. So at the end, I'm going to challenge you to create one of these videos and share it with me. A lot of people are camera shy. Skip,
It takes a little getting used to.
it does. But at the same time, here we are out in the world, for the most part, and we go to the grocery store, and guess what? People see you at the grocery store, and you sit down at dinner with your family, and your family sees you at dinner, and when you're having your team meetings and so forth, that they see your face. So I promise you that in many ways, it's no different than.
But my hair's got to be perfect, man.
Oh, you know what? My hair is always perfect. I'm speak for yourself. I should say that we are lucky in that regard. I know a lot of people who don't know how to deal with their basic maintenance of their haircuts and other stuff during coronavirus, and they think, "Me, goodness gracious, I look like a little out of sorts right now." And we're lucky in that regard. So I do have a suggestion for a barber for anyone else as well, but I promise you probably don't want to take that suggestion, but you might want to take my suggestion in terms of video and using it for your organization. A tool that I use and a tool that I would recommend is Vidyard. There are other tools out there. So if you're already using those, great. If you don't know where to start, let's start with Vidyard, because I'll walk through that process with you here, of how to get set up and using that today. First off, you'll want to add the browser extension to your browser. Here I am inside the Chrome Web Store. All you got to do is search for Vidyard. That's Vidyard. And here you will see the options that come up. At this point, you'll add it to your browser. It's going to go through the normal process here. If you've ever added an extension to your browser, with any luck, your employer gives you these opportunities to add these types of extensions to your browser. If not, you might need to bug IT to get some access to this sort of thing. Now,
so this is one of those things that you want to upgrade your technology for remote work, and you may have to make some adjustments in company policy or those IT restrictions. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. So, but once you get started with this, once you get the A-OK, or heck, maybe you're working off your own laptop and it does much better. Give it a shot. So once you add your browser extension in here, this is skipped over a couple steps for me because I already have a Vidyard account. Mm-hmm. Again, not something that you are unfamiliar with in this process. Anytime you sign up for a new application or service, you know what? They're going to try to grab your name and your email address. Vidyard is no different. You do that. You set up your login. They want to know this information. If you don't want to share it with them, you don't have to. I'm going to skip. And they wouldn't be a video company, a video platform that provides these sorts of solutions if they didn't show you a video to celebrate that you have signed up for Vidyard. And at this point, you're all ready to rock and roll. You can create your first video. I want to go through that process with you now, just the same, about how to create your first video, because again, this is going to be our challenge here at the end is you're going to create a video. It's not going to be long. It doesn't have to be elaborate. And it's really simple to do. So let's walk through this process. Now that we've added it to our browser, you're going to see it up here. One of these are going to be yours. For Vidyard, it's that little green guy, and we click on him. It's going to give us some options. Right now, I'm only sharing my tab. Typically, I share my screen. When I'm sharing my screen, that means I can jump back and forth between different applications, and people are going to see what's there. So, probably a little thing that you might want to make sure that your computer is distributed workforce friendly. Hey, my desktop background is my dog. So if you want to see my crazy, my crazy pet, sure. That's a perfectly fine desktop background, but just make sure you got everything set up to share. That's good for you and your colleagues, and what you wouldn't be upset if your grandma saw just the same. So get your screen set up. Or you can share your camera only. It's going to show you a live preview. Right now, you might see that it's actually pulling in a different camera than what you're seeing as part of the webinar, but you can adjust that just the same. Here's a drop down. I'm then going to choose my much nicer camera. You can see a much better picture of me. I have invested in a very inexpensive light that shines back from behind my desktop computer, and that will gives me a lot more color, maybe makes like a better experience for people that are watching the video. But honestly, the video quality is far less important than the audio quality. So if you want to spend a few dollars on something and you're thinking, geez, do I need a nicer camera? Do I need some lighting, or do I need a microphone? The answer is you need a microphone. If your audio isn't quite up to snuff, that's something that you want to get fixed. People have much lower tolerance for that versus some of those video pieces. All right, we've chosen that. Now let's say we're back at the screen, and for whatever reason we really don't want to show our camera. Sometimes at night, if I'm burning the midnight oil here and it's 10 p.m. and I just look like I'm a shadow anyway, you know what? Maybe you just remove the camera there. It doesn't need to be on there. But typically, I would suggest having it on there, making sure you've got your camera set up and your microphone set up here just the same. Now, I'm going to turn the microphone off for the sake of this demonstration, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to want it there. The other really neat thing that I think is useful for corporate communications and teams is you get to see who has actually seen your video. So, we talked a little bit earlier that, World According to Ben, World According to Skip, it's maybe a little much to put those keystroke monitors and such on a distributed teams computers, and instead we should be looking at the results that our teams are getting. At the same time, it might be nice that if you sent your colleague a video to see that they actually clicked on it and saw that. And we can get those kinds of analytics. And especially in a sales environment where if you're on those sorts of teams where you're in business development, where you're in marketing, where you're in sales, and you're sending people videos, seeing those sorts of analytics, seeing that you're getting engagement with those videos is key to be able to determine the ROI, since we're sticking with that acronym here today. I'm going to get started with this recording here, and we can see how this process works. Oops, jumped me back to my old camera. We're going to get started here. You know what? I might stick with the old one just in case there's a conflict between these cameras. We're going to get started. I'm going to choose to share my entire screen. Now we're sharing it. It's going to give us 3 minutes. As we said earlier, geez, this might not be the most natural thing in the planet for you. So it's going to give you 3 minutes to collect your thoughts, maybe shake it out a little bit, give a big deep breath so that you're ready to start your video. And here we are, we're recording the screen up here that we have. We're recording me talking. You're seeing some motion back and forth. You know what? As this is a new thing for you. Maybe you stutter over your words just like I stuttered over my words. Now, for the most part, as I said, people are super forgiving about video because this is how we talk as people. As much as I would love to say that I am always articulate, never make grammatical mistakes when I speak with others, that's not the case. And so people, when they're listening to video, when they're hearing the words that you're saying on a recorded video, they're a lot more forgiving. That's something else to think about. I have found video to be so much faster than some of these other communication methods. How long does it take you to send an email of substance, especially if you're going to follow Matt Mullenweg's advice to make it succinct? It's easy for me to throw a bunch of words on an email and click send, but when it's important, when I need to think about how I'm structuring the email, when I can't have a typo, goodness gracious, how long do you agonize over every single last typo and you just can't hit that send button because there might be something that's a little bit off grammatically or a misspelling or some sort of typing error? Well, with video, You don't have to worry about that. So you can crank out some really high impact content very quickly and share that over email. You've communicated in a much fuller, richer way, and you've done it faster than you could have otherwise. But let's say, this is your first time here and you think, boy, I really went off the rails. It's time for me to restart, time to start again. Vidyard has this nice little restart function here. So we're going to click it. It's going to ask you if you want to give another try. Great. Sends you back to the beginning where now I'm sharing my entire screen. We're back to the countdown. And
I love that.
That's right. It's just people to get back to square one. In this process, that there's no excuse. You can goof up, great. Now you can start over again. Now we're going to cut this off here. We're happy with the video that we've recorded. Going to click pause. Now it's going to take us to another screen where it's going to start the encoding process. It's going to host this video for us on Vidyard's page. Now, when you want to get into some fancier bells and whistles where it's hosted on a subdomain of your entity's domain. So for example, when I share a video, it gets shared from video.noboundsdigital.com. When you're using the free tool, it's going to come from Vidyard's website. But now we got an opportunity to put some updates here. So I'm going to put video for our webinar. I can't type on here either. So as I noted earlier, I agonize over those darn typos. We can create any sort of description or tags so that when we come back to this, we can take a look at videos that are associated with some of these tags. And this helps with sharing just the same. You can see we're still encoding and going through this process, especially the animated thumbnail. But at this point, now that we've added the description or title, you don't necessarily need those either. If this is just a quick one-off communication that people aren't necessarily going to need to refer back to, all this stuff is extra bells and whistles. You can just get to this page, quickly click copy link, and now you're off to the races. You can put this in an email. You can put this in a Slack channel. You can put this inside of chat, and so on and so forth. But what I want to do in an email is typically I like to include the thumbnail, really brings people's attention to the video, gives it a little extra flavor inside of your emails just the same. So right now the animated thumbnail is still loading. So we're going to just use this static thumbnail. When I go into share, I can click copy link and thumbnail, and now I'm off to the races. It gives you a number of other sharing options here, just the same. So let's say, you were using this for communications with a customer and you thought, well, hey, I don't have to say, hey, Jane Doe or John Smith, here's the information about our service or our product and how to fix it. You can omit that part and just talk generically and say, oh yeah, here's a micro demo of this feature. This is how you use this. Or for anyone who's having an issue with this technical difficulty, this is how you resolve it. And now you have this link forever and ever, amen, that you can go back to and send to anyone else who might have this problem. Anyone else who might have this challenge. So you're able to streamline your communications this way. We use this as a team at No Bounds Digital for our new staff person onboarding process. We created a series of emails, and then we augmented those emails with video. So now they get to see me and connect with me as the owner of No Bounds Digital. They get to connect with other team members. They get to experience an onboarding process that's automatic and streamlined, but at the same time is really engaging and multimedia rich, just the same. So here I've copied this link and thumbnail. Let's say I think it's something worth sharing on LinkedIn just the same, using that sort of use case that I talked about just now. Great. You can share it directly to social media channels, put it on your YouTube channel as a corporation or an individual, or share it on a one-to-one email. Now, when you share one-to-one email, it's just going to by default use that initial link, which is why I like to copy this link and thumbnail first, because as I say, when you do that and you switch that out, you get this nice engaging image. And now that our animated thumbnail has loaded, we can choose that just the same. We'll pull that into our email, and you can see in the background, it's a little bit small probably for you, but you can see there's that welcome video from Vidyard that's moving around. You can see my head bebopping, so on and so forth. Those sorts of tools are great ways to bring people's attention to the video content that you're creating as a team and with other individuals. So those are some key components to how video works for you, how you can get started with video. And as noted, everything that I talked about here is free. So there are certainly some bells and whistles. I talked about the domain. You're not going to see this option to download the video with the free Vidyard Chrome extension, but it is a possibility if you want to upgrade Vidyard at some point in the future. There's also some other tools that are at your disposal. You can click the videos tab to go to your video library. So as I noted, all those videos that you might want to come back to because you can see some utility the next time you hire a new employee or the next time someone asks that same question of you. If you're in customer support, or people come to you as a technical subject matter expert in your organization, and you know what? They have similar questions each time. You can take this video, augment it with some text to talk about their individual use case, their individual situation, and now put that, but use this as an opportunity to save time and at the same time communicate in a really rich way in your organization. What's great about this, and what, say, the Zooms of the world and stuff don't have, is when we're thinking about becoming a level 4 team where you're embracing asynchronous communication. This gives you all of those tools in your arsenal of communication tools, enhances them, allows you to use them in a way that's a little bit more human and a little bit more personalized. How many times, this was years and years and years ago, but I still remember it, that I had sent an email to someone and they sent this apologetic reply back to me because they said, "I am so sorry that you resent that information or what I shared with them." But you know what? I hadn't resented it. I had resent it. I had sent it again, and that little bit of difference really changed that whole email thread. And it would have been
God, that's funny.
So much more less complicated and unfortunate on their end. They probably thought I was angry at them, upset.
That's funny.
The conversation, but it was just a matter of a little bit of misstep that didn't really come through over text, but would have been so simple in a video conversation.
I think people, one thing that I've had to overcome this, and I think people will have to overcome, is really letting go of being perfect. And I think the flubs, and it doesn't have to, you want to come across as being ridiculous or stupid, but just normal everyday conversation. Just make it conversational and make it authentic. People will be fine with some flubs and some ums and ahs and, "Oh, I forgot this, let me go back," whatever it is, because you want to make it authentic. And I've really benefited from some customer service interactions where I've asked for help with some software programs I'm subscribing to online, and in the chat room they send me this little 60-second, 45-second video just pointing out where to go on it, and they say pictures worth 1,000 words, and I think this tool will certainly enhance communication if you can get everybody just to let go of that perfectionist thing and then be okay with it not being you're not on like the nightly news. So
and at the same time, look, as you do it, as you practice, it's gonna become something that's second nature to you. And if for whatever reason it's really not, you know what? Join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a great organization. I've been a part of it for years. Darn it, it's a great leadership and communications tool. Or get a book on it. Record yourself. this is an awesome opportunity to record yourself and watch your own game tape. Are you a good communicator? Are you clearly explaining what you're trying to explain to others? When you see yourself, when you hear yourself, you now have an opportunity to improve and grow. So video is something that can really help you communicate as a team and as a corporation. One of the ways that I use it is I use it in one-to-one sales video. So if you're responsible for making it rain in your organization, I love this tool. You do outreach over email, people ignore it. You call them over the phone, guess what? No one's at their office work phone number anymore. So no one picks up the phone. But when someone sees a video here and it says press play, and you pop in their name and you write, press play Skip, and now I send you a video that's me waving and says this, you know what? You know that it wasn't just some automatic scammy thing. It's a real human on the other end of that email who wants to engage with you in a personalized and humanized way. So, our engagement on emails and our reply rate and our open rate in a sales context have improved. The amount of time that people spend on an individual website, on an individual web page, because we've got video on it now, and we've got an opportunity for people to convert on that video because we're using HubSpot and Vidyard at the same time. Or if you're using other similar tools, there might be some options there as well. But we're a HubSpot shop, so we use that. We'll upload a video to our website, and then we can actually add a form or a call to action button right at the end of that video, just the same.
And the thing I was thinking about, if you want to create trust with team members, the best way to do it is with some personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I can see you when you're talking with me, I build that much better relationship. And do some things that are cute and fun. Send somebody a 30-second little thing that you're thinking about them. I think this goes a long way to building that relationship with team members if you're not in the same room together.
Absolutely. So I want to conclude this here with, first off, if anyone has any sort of last minute questions, hammer that out here in the chat and let us know. We're happy to tackle them. We're happy to tackle them off this webinar as well. So if you put something in here and we don't have quite time for it, that's fine. Just the same, we're happy to follow up with you. But as I alluded to here, definitely take Skip up on his offer. Get those additional free resources. Hop over to that website, improveemployeeperformance.com. Now, my ask for you here is to maybe get a little uncomfortable and do what I just did. Get a hold of see, here I am stammering on my words, but you know what? Life goes on. You're going to forgive me. I'm going to forgive myself. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take and embrace this challenge that I have for you, which is to download the Vidyard extension. Get that on your browser. It's going to take you 5 minutes to do, and then record a video for 60 to 90 seconds. 60 to 90 seconds. And here's what I want you to talk about. I want you to introduce yourself. It's the easiest thing there is to talk about is yourself. Most people could talk about themselves from the moment they get up in the morning till it's ready to go to bed again. So introduce yourself briefly, and then explain what main problem that your company solves. So if you make widgets and those widgets go into this larger product, and this is what they do, that's what I want to hear. If you provide a service for people and it helps them save money or make more money or get more time back, great. I want to hear that too. So I want to hear a little bit about you, and I want to hear a little bit about what the company that you are a part of and what your organization is doing in terms of their products or services. So if you spend those 60 to 90 seconds, record that video inside of Vidyard and send Skip and I that video. We want to see it. We want to see what you come up with. And the video that we choose, I will spend 60 minutes with that person and that company doing a free complimentary 60-minute free video workshop where we will go over some best practices for video for you and your organization, take a deep dive into how you can start to incorporate video more fully into your team communications and also your growth engine when we think about marketing and sales, and also your customer service teams too. We talked about all those different use cases. So we could take as broad of a brush as you want in that 60 minutes, or we could talk about you and your role and go real deep there about how we can help you succeed with video. In addition to that, I'll give you and your video a little bit of love on social media. Just the same, I'd love to share it out. Of course, if you don't feel comfortable with that, and this is a big, big stretch for you here, even just to get in front of a camera for 60 or 90 seconds, we don't have, you don't necessarily have to take me up on that one, but I would love to take that sort of winning video and spend a little bit of extra time with you, just like we did here in a general sense, but make it really personalized to you and your individual situation. Great.
Cool.
I'm not seeing any other questions. I think, Skip, that means that we just wowed them with our knowledge. They're completely speechless. But just the same, I really, really appreciate everyone for being here, for taking out a good hour and a half of your day to be a part of this masterclass. I hope you've got a lot of value. We had a great time sharing it with you. And Skip, I'll let you close.
Yeah, no, thanks for partnering with me on this, Ben. It was really great having everybody to participate. Again, I'll just reiterate, I hope everybody got some value out of it, and definitely follow up on Ben's video idea. And we look forward to seeing what comes out of those, and just taking it one step at a time, let go of being perfect, and just have fun with it and send something along. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.